Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we are back to doing systematic review, reviewing the past to determine the future. This is your exam question for your this one of your exam questions for this part. In fact, the actual exam question for this particular course and the UGBS 702, that's Advanced Quantitative Research Method. So thank you very much for your audience. And my objective this afternoon is to just go through what goes into looking into a review paper. That is systematic review. There are different types of review. Later on, we'll try to see if there is time, and I'll let one of my team members, either Obed or somebody, look at to take you through bibliometric review, which is also a good way of reviewing review. Undertaking such a study will require the review of literature that entails the gathering, assimilation, and analysis of extant literature from diverse sources, largely academic oriented. So sometimes we also review ones which are not academic. Some of the reviews I've done, I even bring industry into it, but it's not always that I do that. Now, every good systematic review should be concept-centric. That means I should start from a topic or phenomenon study. And we use that concept and other related concept to be able to form the organizing framework of the review paper that you're writing. And also to pull out the relevant literature. And then also making sure that we cover a diversity of journals and a diversity of geographic location so that we can be able to triangulate and tell you what is known and what's not known about the paper. So a systematic review helps us to be able to establish what is known and what is not known. In chapter 3 of this book, Richard made this, I do exhaustive discussion on that area. And it's targeted at PhD students in that particular discussion. So I don't teach a systematic review to the master students, but teach the PhD students. Okay, a synthesis of available resources and materials. Now, what the difference about this is that we are now going to do a description and critical evaluation comparative analysis of each work. Now, so when we start the work, we want to try and make sure that the areas that we are covering are not limited to one geographic area, one literature or one journal article, one author, and then one university or one institution. We are trying to make sure that we search to be able to define the discrepancy between what we know and what we need to know, and then help the lecturer or the researcher to identify critical knowledge gaps. That will become the basis of the PhD thesis. Every good PhD, when I started my PhD, my supervisor gave me an assignment. I started my PhD around 2000 and, if I can remember, 2004, 2004 September, August, I think so. Now they gave me up to November to go and write a paper titled E-commerce in Developing Countries, What We Know and What We Don't Know. I took 54 papers at that time and reviewed it and I wrote it. And that's why I defended my gap. My supervisor saw the gap and said that the gap you have found is good enough for a PhD. We will not look elsewhere. We will just make sure that we review more papers to add onto the gap and then focus on that gap to the end of the PhD. By the time I got to third year, people were now still thinking about doing a review, because what people did is that most of you do that. Oh, I came to do the PhD with this area in mind. When I was coming, I had the area in mind. They didn't even review the area. They have something in mind. They think that is what you should do. And they kept on massaging that area. Oh, they'll find papers to fit that area. They don't go and review the literature. So they'll be doing targeted review, targeted reading. Find a paper that will say something to confirm your area. Find a paper to say something to confirm your area. Without looking at the the discipline, what are the contemporary questions that are being asked? Who are asking those questions? Does it even have currency for the time you submit your PhD in 4 years' time? So, but by the time those students go to second year, third year, they say, somebody has written a paper that actually addresses the question they had, addresses it, and then finishes that. So there's no PhD anymore. The answer question has been answered already. Even what's even painful is that it's even answered from a developing country. So even if you are doing the study in Nigeria, somebody has answered it from Ghana or somebody has answered from Kenya, and has used the theory you are also going to use. And it's because sometimes the phenomenon is not complex enough to study. So it's tied to only one aspect, dimension of the phenomenon, and that's all that you have kept in your mind. I advise you to repent from that after this lecture and jump into literature and get to know what is in the literature. Okay, so there are several types of reviews that exist in online now. If you go to entrepreneurship, you can find international expansion of China's small and medium-sized businesses, status today and future outlook. So this is how they stated it. What is he looking to look at? China's small business. So the target is internationalization, international expansion. A classification of export marketing problems of small. So somebody can focus on a sub-theme, export marketing challenges, export marketing problem of a small SMEs, SME in manufacturing firms. So this was even looking at specifically a particular group, manufacturing firms. A review of entrepreneurship research published in Hospitality and Tourism Management Journal. So it means that this person may be doing entrepreneurship in these sectors. So he chooses a sector review, not just the concept review. He's making sure the concept is reviewed within a sector, hospitality and tourism. So please, I'm not going to tell you how you're going to do your own, but I'm showing you the diverse type of reviews that exist in literature so that you know where you go. Some people also choose a concept that may be coming from a theory, interpretation, dynamic capabilities, and review a model and research agenda. Now, what he does here is that means that he will review certain things and develop a model out of the review in terms of the factors that tend to matter and point out what feature that research should do with that particular one. I've not read it, I'm just telling you what I think. National culture and entrepreneurship look at two different concepts here and a review of the behavioral research. So if your study is going to look at two concepts, better you do a review on the two concepts. But that doesn't mean that you always find papers in the area. You may not find papers in the area. So you may have to do a review on entrepreneurship and find out whether there's any paper in entrepreneurship that talks about national culture or the other way around. Okay, accounting, economic value added, a review of theoretical and empirical literature. When I say theoretical, there are papers that are conceptual, they have not got any data. So you review that one too, including the empirical ones. Sometimes people do reviews, they limit their work to only empirical papers, so papers that have got data. Some also limit their work to papers that are empirical but not conference. So some people, like, the reason why they drop conference is that they say they don't want to do a double count, because sometimes conference paper has been published subsequently after some years. Some people too don't do that. They want you to add the conference to it. So it's up to the one doing the review. A review of earnings management literature, its implication for standard setting. Okay, so now it's focusing into a particular area. Accounting and taxation in Europe, a comparative review. So I've also seen, I did limit the review by geographic location. I've done that before. IFRS, International Finance Reporting Standards, if I'm right. Adoption and accounting quality, a review. A use of disclosure indices in accounting research, a review article. I'm just giving examples. There are more than this. Marketing, place branding, a review of trends and conceptual models. Okay. Methodological issues in cross-cultural marketing research, a state-of-art review. International services marketing, a review of research, 1980 to 1998. Structural modeling in marketing, which is interesting. A person wants to look at structural modeling, that's structural equation modeling in marketing, a review. So look at adding a method to the area. Culture in international marketing, a critical review. Somebody can look at culture in information system adoption, a critical review and suggestion for future research. Culture in let's say healthcare policy management. So somebody can do something similar. Determinant of export performance, a review of empirical literature between for 10 years, a decade, 1987. There could be a reason why he did that decade. Maybe something happened. Finance, taxes and corporate finance, a review. Efficiency of financial institution, a review and a preview. a preview of research policy, present and future. Sorting and voting, a review of literature on urban public finance. Behavioral finance, a review and synthesis. Efficient capital markets, a review of theory and empirical work. Finance and economic growth, a review of theory and available evidence. Public administration, big questions in the, I like this one, big questions or relevant questions, big questions in the public network management research. Wow. Collaborating public management, assessing what we know and how we know it. I remember what I mentioned. This is actually telling that assessing what we know and how we know. So it's doing methodology and then issues and theories. But he didn't state it, but you can see how we know it is about methodology. Public administration, and then where it is published. Public administration research, an assessment of journal publications. Okay, this one is assessing the journal publications. Okay. Okay. So it's not, so it's very specific. It means that all conferences out in that sense. Technology transfer and public policy, a review of research and theory. Public sector motivation, a review of current literature and a revised conceptual model. Public-private partnership and international performance review. Now, there's some supervisors who don't believe in this review that I teach students. They say you can just start an area, just talk about the concepts, think about a few literature that have been used, and go away. Me, I've been saying that the reason why this is important is that you, the student, you avoid a lot of work that you do in the future if you get to know what has been done, so that you know all the literature in the area and take stock. Because every year new literature is coming, so as you go on, you can then add more. So me, for an MBA and a PhD in year one, I think it's a must, and that's why I'm emphasizing that every student will do this in this semester. Information technology and productivity review. Revisiting IS business value research, what we already know, what we still need to know, and how can we get there. Very interesting. But it's the same as review extension suggestions for future research. So you see, sometimes somebody does a review on a theory. So I remember I read this paper for my PhD because I was doing a resource-based theory. I read this paper for my PhD. 6 Sigma quality, a structured review and implication for future research. This one I just mentioned, I didn't even know it was there. A review of culture in information systems research. So somebody can add a review of culture and information systems research in emerging economies. Somebody can add that if it's that's what. A descriptive literature review and classification of cloud computing research. Okay. Concept, sometimes multidisciplinary. A concept of information overload. A review of literature from organizational science, accounting, marketing, MIS, and related disciplines. A partial review of entrepreneurial literature across disciplines. A cross-disciplinary review of the concept of accountability. I think this one comes accounting. And not because of accountability, but I need some accounting. Now, these are some of the reviews I've done. Cloud computing research, a review of research opinions, frameworks, and methods, smartphone additions. And every year, my students will publish a lot of reviews. Even year, now, this year, we have about 3 reviews coming out. That it's not even, it has been accepted, it's yet to come out. A systematic literature review of digital piracy research information system. Now, I want then exploring the scope of user resistance. Okay, 41 years of research. Branding in small. This one I did with somebody in marketing. And then mobile phones and financial services in developing countries. E-commerce and LDC. This one, the number 8 won the best paper award in the Journal of African Business. The time it was published. And then e-commerce in developing countries. This one too was featured as a leading paper in a book that was written about e-commerce in developing countries. So the first paper, paper 1. They liked the paper so much, they made it the first paper you should read when you open the book. A review of theoretical frameworks and approach. These 2 are coming from my PhD directly. I published them during the PhD, not after, during the PhD. To these 2, the 8 and 9, during the PhD. But they are more than this. I guess these are just a snapshot. Now, let me just show you the relevance of why review matters. So let's go to Google Scholar. Now, recently there have been some rankings that have been published about leading researchers in Ghana, and I'm just showing you how reviews have helped me. Look at my top papers here. This review, I didn't even do my PhD. 330 citations. It's even going more. There are more people are publishing every time. Usually, reviews help to establish the area. Look at cloud computing research 2018. I published it in 2018, 1666. So a lot of papers, and this one was somebody I supervised in his master's. I supervised. He became the valedictorian of his year group. He will be the best student of the. It's interesting. I've had best students in Eugene twice. Then I didn't even realize he was the best student of MPhil in that year group. I was the valedictorian of the year group. And then recently Joseph too was the best. Had the best thesis. Interesting. I thank God and glory be to God for that. But I'm praying that one of you two will become a best student somewhere by the time we finish. There are prospects among you.
Amen.
1 or 2. So look at another review. A review of theoretical framework 55. Another one 55. These 2 were published around the same time. This was the one which was the best paper award. And then the one on the marketing one 46. I'm just showing you the relevance of review. And recently I published some new reviews too. Let me see. And I'll see whether they are coming up. Um, okay, this one too. Just this one, 2019, just as it was just recently published. This is one of my PhD students. We published his chapter 2. In fact, he's a student. His assignment from this class is what has been published here. His assignment from this class is what has been published here. Okay, then so I'm just telling you that if you are willing, I'm going to help you. So this one too, a PhD student. Assignment from this class. Assignment from this class. PhD students. Okay. And this one too, a PhD, it was published in a PhD work. No, this is Joseph's Masters. Joseph's Masters. His Masters thesis was published. In fact, the paper was so good that they invited us to come to the conference in Germany. We couldn't get visa. You know, I think Germany, I didn't know that Germany, if you are applying to a visa there, even though they call the embassy, you join the queue. They give us 3 months. They say we should come for the interview in 3 months' time. So the time was passed. So we couldn't go. But we were invited for a conference because of that paper. Then recently, smartphone addiction, one of my PhD, 2020, 4 citation straight. Hawaii Conference Information Systems. It was a very good paper there. So I'm just telling you the relevance of doing doing that. This is another one to look at this. Mobile learning, look at assistance of the past to define the future. Okay. So that are quite this review 2020. This one just came at the end of 2020. At the end of 2020, look at what has happened to it. Data entrepreneurship in business, a systematic review. So most of my students who listen to me, they get a lot of good work out of there before they finish. Before they even finish. Let me see if I can see this one too. Again, 2019, 2 has come out of it right now. Okay, so the relevance of review cannot be overstated. It's a very, very important review. A review of mobile payment. This paper, somebody in America wrote to us. My PhD supervisor from a master's. He's now working as a left academia to work in practice. And they were doing a project in the company. The company she was working now needed it, so they wanted us to send it to them. This one, I just taught the thing in class. This is also coming from this class. And the lady did it in the class. I thought it's a good paper. Then by the time I realized she has even submitted it to a conference. And it was accepted. And she came to tell me about it. Interesting. So I'm just letting you understand that they all have got the impact on you if you do a good review. It's an impact on the work you do if you do a good review. Let me see if there's any other ones. So these are one. There are some new papers, there are new reviews that we are just done. Don't think that some of them are captured here. Okay, they are yet to show up. Okay. Anyway. In fact, there are even papers here that have not even categorized. I don't even know. Okay. So please, the relevance of reviews cannot be overemphasized. So please, I'm pleading with you that take reviews important serious. It will help your PhD. It will help your work. If you want to be a good scholar, you want to be like Prof. Hinson in your marketing department, or you want to just be like Professor Amidu in accounting, Dr. Ba in HR, please. These top scholars of Abo, who I've learned a lot from, these scholars, I beg you. They take works that they have done serious. So I'm just telling you, a review will matter. Okay. And nobody's asking a question, so let me continue. So a review has to be concept centric, and that will help you to establish the framework for the paper. Now, whenever you're reviewing, you can categorize the papers into different categories depending on the objective of the review. So you can look at the research. In fact, the minimum we should do is what I've tried to minus this. Now, this industry is an issue. I didn't even know until I saw some people do industry because they realize that sometimes a topic has been published too much in the banking sector. It has not been looked at in the another sector. So recently, somebody was doing a paper and she had to emphasize that watch the variables she studied. Nobody had looked at it in the fashion industry. And even the fashion industry was looking at in the beauty and something that's a beauty. The women, you have got different areas. Is it beauty and care or something like beauty and cosmetic industry, which is different from fashion? And there have been issues, there have been previous papers in fashion, previous in banking, but the beauty and cosmetic, nobody had done it. And cosmetic products are highly information-tized, like become information driven. So the relevance of what you're trying to study in that area was very, very important. So he made the argument based on the industry. So sometimes it's good to know which industries have been covered in your research work, which industries, so that I can make a justification. Especially if you want to justify that public sector have not received much attention in this area, or an aspect of public sector have not received much attention in that area. This employee motivation I was talking plenty. And I showed you, if we narrow down, you may realize that all the employee motivations in specific areas, nobody is studying employee motivation maybe in the agricultural sector, which has so many different nuances that could actually affect the motivation. Okay, so please, Gilbert, I saw your hand up. Can you be snappy about your question?
Yes, thank you, Prof. Yes, I wanted to find out when you showed us a Google Scholar, one of your papers cited about 330. In the research work, when you take a paper, which aspects do you normally focus on for your citations? Is it the findings sections, or sometimes during the papers that we've done so far, you find some statements within the introduction, you find statements in the literature review, and sometimes you reference them. But ideally, when you take a paper, which aspect or which section of the work should you be referencing?
Gilbert, it depends on what you're writing. If you're writing about definition of blockchain, you go for where the definition is. If you're looking at gaps in blockchain, you go to the introduction and then the conclusion where the gaps are discussed. If you're looking at methodologies that have been used to study blockchain, for example, blockchain has been studied by Boateng using an experiment method. Well, then you quote from my work again. So each of them, you are quoting from the work, but it can come from any of the places. If you're looking at theory, you look at the person's theory section. That's why I would say do the telescopic view, so that you know what is every paper, you know what is relevant about the paper to you. So when you're writing, you choose based on what is relevant to you. Do you understand me? For a paper can be cited a number of times for different reasons. Sometimes people cite my paper because it is in developing country, not because of even reading it. You just want to show that there have been research from developing country on the issue. And that research may have emphasized that there's a need for more research in another area. So you then emphasizing my research gap.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Please, it's better for you to go and watch my video I place on the platform under the master students called Descriptive and Analytical Writing. It explains how to pick different references and use them in your writing. I'm not going to teach you the PhD students because I don't have extra. When I ask for extra time, you guys didn't mind me. So you can go and watch it and then study from it. Time has already passed. So you can go and watch it and then study that one. If those of you want to learn how to write. But there's a video on the platform, analytical and descriptive writing. I just did it yesterday and I put the video there, so we're going to learn from that. So you can categorize by research issues, theories and conceptual approaches views, research methods, level of analysis, geographic origin. But some of them are not necessarily depending on what you want. But most of the papers that write review always cover research, theory, method. Except that they add the geographic to the method. Because in method, you can get data collection method, paradigm, analysis method, and then where context, where the data was collected. But some people just separate the geographic region from their research method. I'm just letting you understand. Research method is very broad. Then the industry or the stakeholder we're looking into, depending on the study. As for journal and time, it's a given, it's a must. You have to do that one, journal and time. Then research gaps. Why are you doing the review? I'm not going to tell us the gaps in the research. So, but we don't usually categorize by research gap. You can tell us the gaps in research in terms of the issue, gaps in the research in terms of theory, gaps. What questions are being asked in research method? What questions are being asked in level of analysis? What questions are being asked in geographic region? What questions are being asked in industry? So you can ask based on that one. Now, so your introduction of research and review always should start from why is the area important? What are the issues there? Are there any existing reviews? By the time you finish that particular background, you should establish that if there are any existing reviews, why are you going to do another review? When you are doing a review, you don't review another review as part of a review in terms of the count of papers. It doesn't make sense. So if you search for papers and you are doing a review and you find about 6 reviews already in the area, you can notify them, but you don't count them as part of the papers because those papers are reviewed already. Unless you want to do a review of reviews, which doesn't make sense to you. So what will happen if you don't do this review? Please don't think that, and that's one thing about gaps. Don't think that we're doing a review because there's no review in the area. Why, if they don't do the review, what will happen? If it's an established thing, then you need some guts to call for another review. So why are you calling for a review? Is there a weakness of an existing review? I remember my supervisor pointed to me that the existing reviews in my area didn't start from, we're just doing it in just 10 years, the last decade. So there was no review that was looking from the time internet became a big thing in Africa. That is around 2000 up to the 2000 and the time I was doing my study. So he told me I should go back and start from the beginning. The internet was growing in Africa or developing countries. That was 1999 then, and then do up to now. That is relevant there. But today, if a student is doing review and the topic is very contemporary, I will not advise the student to do that. Because if I do a study on cloud computing, what he has done a study on cloud computing already, he has done review where he left off, can start from. So some people like to start from where a person left off. But if you don't have a number of good years, it's not good. Obed can tell you here that we did a review on AI in Africa, and we came up with only about 17 people. They told us the area is not developed in Africa enough for us to even do a review. So to do a review by class counting, we should do a systematic review. We should have done a numerative review. When we say numerative, we just count and tell us the number of papers here, the number of papers here. They don't want that one. They wanted us to do a thorough subject area review like this one I'm teaching you. So please, if you are going only 17 papers, then you are not doing any thorough review. In that case, you have to really review each paper. But if you've got about 200 papers, 800 papers, 1,000 papers in the area, published in that span, 200 and above, and sometimes even 80 and above, it gives you an idea of how the depth of discussion that you can engage in. So doing fewer papers does not mean that your paper can get published. I did a review, I took to a conference, and we did about 97 papers. So we had to write preliminary insights into this issue. So we didn't want to claim that we have been exhaustive, because sometimes you don't have enough papers there. That's why it's not detailed. The number of papers, the search that you did has brought only a few papers, and if you expand your search to add maybe conferences, you end up having more papers. So framing the research. The second part is you explain the concepts that you are trying to use in your area, then defining them, and then classifying the research area. Sometimes you may find somebody who has done the classification already, but sometimes you may not have anything. So I tell students that classification part, you can leave it if you're not very sure of the classification that you need to use. So you can leave it after you search for the papers and start classifying, then come back and write on that area. So that's one thing you should think about. The classification should be based on what, if that some people have got classification in the area already, or you are the one trying to bring a classification as it. For example, let me just give an example. Let's say that somebody is doing a study on banking or banking models. There are different types of banking models. So I can look at maybe agent-based banking as one of the papers in the area. I can look at digital banking. So I can categorize by the type of banking model they are using. Somebody can also tell you that why don't you use commercial banking and then retail banking? Somebody can say, why don't you? Well, there's also Islamic banking too. So there's so many perspectives you can come from. But whatever classification, you should be able to explain how you're classifying the literature. But usually the classification should focus on the concept. Are you going to classify the concept into different categories? When I was doing my e-commerce one, I classified them into about 4 areas. The first one will have to be opportunities and then potential. There are papers that talk about potential and opportunities on e-commerce. But I had to do the review before I found that. Then there's papers that focus about adoption, papers that focused on strategy issues. That's beyond adoption, support and implementation. So under support and implementation, I had strategy. But recently, somebody did a paper and he just looked about, he categorized the things, the need for the issue, the design of the issue, the development of the issue, and then the implementation of the issue. So and you say you're using a life cycle model. So some people pick a model and use the model to categorize. For example, somebody reviewing public admin, reviewing policy research, policy papers. Then there's a policy development cycle. So policy conceptualization, policy development, policy evaluation, policy something. So you rather categorize the papers according to the cycle, so that you put all the papers on evaluation one side, put all the papers on policy conceptualization one side, and sometimes you see that the papers cut across. You see that those are general papers, the papers that cut across that 2 or 3 teams. So please, there's no fast rule about how you should classify your research. But if the classification exists in the area, like maybe there's a previous review in 2005, and you are now doing another review, you can build upon that person's classification and add more classifiers. Sorry. So the methodology, you define the scope, the time, and journal. If you what year are you spanning, and you should justify. What journals are you looking into? Okay, if you're looking at all the databases, then it's okay. But sometimes you have to have other papers justify these choices, and the geographic region are concerned. Are you going to use conference papers or partition report? If not, tell us why you are not. If you are, then tell us why you are. Then what are you going to, are you the only one working? If you're working with some contributors, usually people think that, scientists think that review shouldn't be done by one person. Even if it's done by one person, you should acknowledge that maybe sometimes you work with other assistants. So if possible, if you work with other people, you say 3 people did the review. One review I did, 3 of us worked on it, 2 of us worked on it. The first person did his own search, and then the second person did his own search. And after that, we met together, and then we did a cross, exchange our search results, so that we can cross similar papers together and then look at papers which are not common to each other. That increases the reliability of the work, because you have 2 people who have done independent search and brought them together. So sometimes the contributors and assistants help to enhance the scientific endeavor you are going through. Well, this is a methodology, it's a science. So you have to actually tell us that there is science behind science, not sense. Science means that the approach is credible. The approach can be repeated. So, and then the approach itself is reliable. So can you replicate the approach and get almost the same thing? Can this satisfy all that it's supposed to satisfy? What is your inclusive criteria? What is your exclusion criteria? So now, if you look at my more recent papers in reviews, like the one on ecom and the one on cloud computing, I try to go push myself. What's my exclusion criteria? Because in the past people are not looking at all these things, but because of the fact that I keep on publishing in this area, I've come to see that now the standard in searching, in doing this review, they ask, what's your inclusion criteria? What's your exclusion criteria? The keywords used for the search, the screening criteria, the statistics, and the screening criteria, and then when you screen, what did you get? And then the final number of articles, the number of journals, and the time coverage. So let me just show you an example. I recently supervised somebody in year 2 right now who has published his paper in one of my upcoming books. Yeah, please, I do a lot of publication. Some of them are books by Springer and other people. So when we do this assignment, do it very well, I can invite you to bring your paper into one of the publications. A good PhD is the one that has published from it. It's very difficult for us to fail you in your PhD if you have published from your PhD. So start publishing today. I'm advising you. Please don't stop me if I get to 1:30. Those who have to leave, you can leave for your class. I beg you, don't interfere so that I can actually teach those who are here. You can watch the video later. Okay. And I will not rush it. So I want to take my time to explain. This is a very important part. So recently one of my students worked on a paper that's coming up. Let me open the paper itself. Patrick. And okay, so this is it. So this is the paper that as a review of dominant issues, multi-dimensions, and future research direction in smart cities. Okay. So this is an introduction. Look at the method of review. So he had to justify what you were going to do. Remember, I mentioned certain things. I think he quoted from some of the books I gave him to look at. Okay. Okay, good. Now I think you can see now. Can you see? Class, can you see?
Yes, Prof.
Okay. In this review, EBSCO, Scopus, and JSTOR and the top 8 IS journals were searched. So you see, he chose these ones. But sometimes they push you down. We have to justify. Usually, when you say the top 8 IS journal, we understand why you're choosing the top 8 IS journal. But if you look at the book, so the book chapter focuses on digital innovations, business and society. Coming from an IS perspective, we focus more on the business and managerial aspects of the smart ETT. So he's justifying the person I am using his work. He's calling me right now. Hey, so interesting. Patrick, I'm in class. I'm using your work to teach right now. Your review. Okay, so this is interesting. Okay, so hence a database like the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers were also omitted because he was focusing on the business and managerial aspect of smart cities. If you add that one, you get all the engineering issues about smart cities, which you don't want, because the target journal was on business and society and innovation. So you have to make sure that you eliminate those ones. Okay. So what did he search on? He chose the search thing that search parameters, smart city and smart cities, digital cities, e-cities. Then he said the databases was also limited from 2016 to 2020, and those in English language. According to the systematic review by Culture, there has been a growing literature review or on a literature review on smart cities since 2005 and a spike in 2010. Existing systematic reviews have been conducted on papers published between. So there were initial papers. So you have to choose. That's what I was telling you, that if there have been initial papers in there, you have to be very careful where you choose from. Even that, though there were initial papers, he chose from 2016 to 2020. He got 866 papers. So look at what he did. So this is the kind of things that we want to see. JSTOR, what he got, EBSCO, what he got, and then Scopus, what you got, Scholar, what you got, Francis, what we got. Then he came to the senior basket. Why do you do a senior basket? These are the leading authors in your area. So some of my papers, I also do the senior basket of it. So that if your senior basket are not publishing on the team, it tells you that the research area I've selected for your PhD, the senior scholars in your area have not yet warmed up to it. And it's possible. It's not strange. It's not warm up. It's possible. By the time you finish your paper, your thesis, maybe they have responded to the area. So it's good to know the senior basket of journals in your area of research. So you go to the different journals. So you saw that there are a lot of them in JAI, that's Journal of Association Information Systems. So you got 866. After generating the 866, we move to the second phase of the literary process. This phase involves screening. So now to identify the relevant papers, a title, a keyword, and abstract search were first done to screen the relevant articles. Duplicates were created in the database to reduce the papers to 260. So this is the science. This is where the science is. If we don't do these things, we don't know that you did the work. This is where the science is. If the title and abstract were not informative enough to determine acceptance of the paper, further evaluation of the introduction and full paper. Jabba was asking the question that should I look at here or look at here? Look at what I just telling. Say you look at the title and abstract. If it's not giving enough information, you look at the person introduction and full paper. Then after that, he did all those things and got 70 papers. So this is how it looks like. So nowadays, the people who have been publishing reviews try to do this diagram so that it makes it more methodical for you to see that the work went through a scientific process. So when you search, you got 612 from here, then 254 from the senior basket. Then after title and keywords abstract search, you got 229. Then after titles and keyword abstract search, you got 70 here. Removing or duplicates 260. Introduction reading 190. Full paper reading 110. Extract topics around the key topic. Extract topics around the key topic we want to do 70. So the 70. Now, remember this guy's one is now less than the 200. I was saying that less than 200 is not good. But look at what he has done. If you look at it, how he has built it. Right here, the 70 are the 70 best papers that he can do according to him. So we have to look at it in terms of his work, according to him, that are relevant for the research area. So this is what I was talking about the methodology. So those of you are thinking about writing your methodology, these are the things that we want to see. Okay. So now let's go back to the review. I saw somebody's hand was up. If have I not answered your question by as I went on? Java again. Okay,
Yes,
Java.
sorry. So when you are looking at the years, I was wondering if, for instance, the last review ended, let's say, 2 years ago or a year ago, can you still bring up the year?
No, but remember that if the last review ended a year ago, are you also searching the same thing? That's the issue you should ask yourself first. A student was doing his thesis and a review was published in the year he began for social commerce. So he couldn't do a review on social commerce. I was telling him that look at a sub-theme, what you want to do.
Okay.
Maybe
Okay.
social commerce and value. So then in that case, you have got opportunity to look at it. Unfortunately for him, the guy to look at value too in his work. So I'm just saying that sometimes a sub-theme may be better. A sub-theme.
Okay.
A sub-theme.
Thank you.
Or even a context. When you add maybe emerging economies, it will be better.
Okay.
Yeah. After the reviews, you do a lot of them. So you present your findings. You see the articles in the top journals in your discipline if needed. Maybe for PhD, I say this is important. You want to situate your work to know that the top journals, how do you respond to your work? You can also add journals from developing country perspective. Journals that look at maybe the area. For example, somebody is doing something on crime, financial crime. I think he has to show us how many papers are coming from the Journal of Financial Crime alone. You can't just say that you pick all the papers from Journal of Financial Crime. They may not cover everything that you are doing. Distribution of articles by year, distribution of papers, articles also by journal, distribution of articles by business activities, stakeholders or industry, and then the research focus on your sampling may be included. So this is an example. This is a paper that won the best paper award in the journal. So I did the top e-commerce journals. So in case you don't know, sometimes the topic you are doing your study in, there's even there are journals for that area. For example, somebody has done public administration. There are papers for journals for public administration, not just public sector. Then there's somebody doing something on public sector. There may be journals specifically focused on public sector. So it's okay to add those ones in particular. Even though you are such a database, you can narrow down those ones just to be sure you have obtained all the good papers from that area. Then journals that are focused on maybe developing countries or development. So I try to look at it. So if you look at it here, the paper look at 245 articles. Only 61 of the articles came from the top e-commerce journals, and only 59 came from the IS journals, which information system journal that were in developing countries. All the rest were 186 were coming from other journals. So this is how the year one is. Remember that I told you for my PhD, my supervisor told me I should go back to 93 when internet became a big thing in developing countries. So I had to go back. Then when you do this kind of draft, you need to explain why are these spikes. Sometimes spikes exist because there's a special issue that's published in that area, maybe a journal. And I also realized that from around 2010 going, 2002 going, a specific journal for e-commerce was launched. E-commerce journal was launched, and e-commerce in electronic commerce in developing country journals were launched. So that those journals also account for specific. So sometimes there's thematic journals for the area, journal of financial crime for financial crime. So those picks can come from specific journals. Those picks can come from journals. Then I broke it into different things. So infrastructure, I had the different infrastructure. When we say general, it means the papers that cover almost all the issues, they're not specific to any of them. Then I mentioned that I was looking at potential and constraints, opportunity, assessment, and development, adoption and diffusion. So I had to break it down. So you can map the issues according to the geographic. We call those count as a geographic count. Sorry, economic count, economic distribution. So from there, then I look at the sub-themes. I can discuss the issues I found. So sub-theme one, what are the issues there? What are the authors saying? What have they discussed? What do we know about it? Now, recently, what I've been pushing for is that when you discuss the area, I can then ask questions, put 2 questions or 3 questions on what the questions have been asked for future research. Sometimes some papers cut across time, so I map out. In the past, one paper that I did a mapping because I got too many papers who were cutting across different themes. So I had to map it out so that I numbered the papers up to 54. There were only 54 papers. So I tried to put them. So look at paper 18 and paper 23 tend to cover the needs, application, and adoption. Whilst paper 2 is only just about adoption impact. Paper 33 is only about only impact. Paper, these are very good when your papers are very few. Can do that like that. And it helps you have to understand. That's why if your papers are few, you have to do more thorough reading. And this is about the level, which level of the paper acting on. So if you look at it, I can describe that there is a concentration of the literature on where design and adoption, whilst papers on the studies on needs or impact have received less attention. But then most of the papers too are at the micro level. Look at it, micro level. Plenty papers here at the micro level. Okay. Then I can also do the conceptual approach, the theories that have been done. Sometimes people do the theories by count, others do the theory by categories. So for example, I did it by category: social inspired, social theories, socio-technical theories, and then technical theories, and no defined theory. Then I map it according to quanti, quali, and then mixed method and descriptive. So if you look at it, many of the papers are theoretical. They don't use theories at all. Look at it, they're down here. Oh, sorry. Many of the papers are theoretical. They don't use papers. Somebody's asking at this prof is talking about theory. What is this theories? Okay, so there are in papers, there are different types of things that you see. A theory-based approach, which uses a clear theory, a framework-based approach, which uses a framework for understanding, a model, a concept, and a category. So what are these? These are theories are a general set of propositions which are used for principle for explaining, understanding, and predicting apparent relationships in a certain observed phenomenon. All theories have been empirically tested and verified. So theories are a verified state. However, the other ones are not gaining verification. That is the most important thing you should know. The theories are the verified state, the final part, verified by so many authors, verified by the scientific community and accepted. The rest are all the ones which are now building towards a theory. So all these other ones I mentioned here will one day become a theory, and I'll explain why. So the framework, model, concept, category are below a theory. So there are theories which have got weaknesses, but the final stage is what we call the theory. Okay. So sometimes a work may use a clearly identified theory, or may develop a framework based on a theory, or based a model based on a theory, or a model that does not even apply to a theory, just based on literature. So let's see the difference between the two. Now, the difference between a theory, framework, and model. Theories seek to both describe and explain. It is the most complex form of the theorization, and it is testable. The theory should help you to predict and examine factors which influence your outcome. So theories, this paper is very, very good. If you want to read it about the paper I put down, you can read it. It's a paper I reviewed for my the 2021 version of the research base, the research medias. You are using the 2020 version. The 2021 is with the publishers. We are working on some corrections and things and stuff. So it will come out towards the end of the year. But these are the new things that are inside. So I'm just giving insights on it. And it is based on some other people who helped me to write it. Nielsen is one guy that gave us some good understanding. Yeah, the paper that I referred to, and some other people's papers, which I will show you later when I'm teaching you theories. Okay, so a framework is different from a theory. A framework describes but does not explain the factors believed to influence the outcome. But it doesn't necessarily the word, that's why it's binary. That's not necessarily. It provides a big picture, but framework brings descriptive categories together. So they bring the descriptive categories together so you can understand them. Okay. Then, so let's look at one. So this is a higher theory. This is a theory of planned behavior. Attitude, subjective norm, behavioral control, go to intention. And then, so the intention of a person's behavior is influenced by attitude, subjective norm, and perceived behavioral control. And that same thing can affect the actual performance of the behavior. This is coming from Agent from 1985. Agent and Fishburne developed theory of reason action in 1975. Then 85, Agent said that there were some things which can control a person's behavior. So he added it to these two, 1, 2, 3 is the theory of reason action. He added this one, Agent added this one. Okay. So these are classic theories. Then you have a framework. A framework does not necessarily explain the factors, but it describes them. Necessarily explain, and in fact, the belief, influence, and outcome. It provides a big picture, but does them in categories and put them together and tell you how they may relate together. But you're not going to test it. Frameworks are suggestive of what could work. Theories have been empirically verified that they work. Frameworks are suggestive. Models are suggestive. So what is the impact of mobile on micro trading? So in that case, I developed a conceptual framework for it, which will cover how the traders use mobile phones, benefits, and what impact it may include. So I have this one here that tells you that the traders will adopt mobile phones using for pre-trade, during trade, and post-trade. This middle part, pre-trade, during trade, is coming from economics, the stages of trading. This benefit is coming from information system, IT and commerce literature that talks about the categories of benefits you can get from IT and commerce. This last part is coming from mobiles literature, mobiles and development literature that talks about what benefits people, what impact does mobiles give to people when they adopt it. So I combine this one from these categories together to develop a framework, or we call it a conceptual framework on the impact of mobiles and micro trading. It's very specific to that area, not very abstract, very specific. So this thing has to be tested, and certain things have to be dropped out to one day for it to become a theory. When it becomes a theory, it will not become about mobile phones, it will become more about technology. So they have to test it in many different technologies before they can come up with a verification of what impacts micro trading. That's how theories work. Okay. Then the last one has to be with a model. A model, please, Pasha, I'm coming in. Model doesn't explain, it just describes. Specifically, model doesn't explain. It's a common project you use to describe. And finance people like doing this a lot. Models of banking, then they just come. Branch-based banking, ATM banking, internet banking, mobile bank, agency banking. There's nothing linking them. Okay, so there's no theory in it, just like that. And they can be used for analysis. The difficulty you have is that sometimes something has the name model in it, and it's now a theory, but the name model is still there. Like the research-based view, the research-based model of the research-based view model, which is also called the resource-based theory. The name was called the resource-based view of a firm at the time they started it, but it has now graduated to a theory, but the name model is still left there. Technology acceptance model was proposed some time ago. After a series of testing, the name model has still been left in it. So sometimes you see something in the name model in it, not because it is not a good level, it has not reached the level of theorization. It's because the name was not changed. It was left like that. I hope you understand me. So look at the maturity of the model before you say that this one is not relevant, just a model that they are just using. It's just a model, doesn't have any theory and anything. Look at the maturity. Something has been established by Davis in 1985, and it's called technology acceptance model. And you say it is not a theory by now. After it being tested and being accepted over time, now it is still called technology acceptance model because it has now accepted at the highest level by the scientific community. But the name is still there. It's like you being born today. When you become a president, you call President Akufo-Addo. Is your Akufo-Addo still not be there? But somebody can also call lawyer Akufo-Addo, President lawyer Akufo-Addo, or Esquire Akufo-Addo, because you achieved Esquire some time ago. They left it as part of your attributes. But that doesn't mean. But sometimes to some people's own, the day one that is born, they add the word theory. You don't add the word model because of where it was born. Somebody's work was born out of a PhD, which looked at over 5,000 firms in the US, and he had somebody like the senior scholar in the area supervising him. So there's a model called the UTAUT model. That UTAUT model is actually called a theory, a unified theory. So they unified all the theories for technology acceptance. It was developed by a guy called Venkatash. If you look at the names of the co-authors, Morris and Davis are there. Davis is the guy pioneer who started the whole thing of technology acceptance model. So if he supervises your PhD and you finish and develop a model, and you have also used almost about 10,000 firms or whatever firms, by the time you finish and you publish it in the highest journal in our area, the top highest journals like MISQ and other journals, day one as the thing is published, the thing is accepted by the community. That is the problem we have right now. So some of you are doing good jobs, but because you don't have the empirical verification or empirical rigor, one, and then maybe your supervisor is not globally among he's a top scholar in Africa, but he's not among the senior scholars, and the work that you have done, it has not been published by the senior scholars journal. It is not yet being called a theory. even though the work is very good. So it will take some time. Why? I'll give you more examples later when we are doing. So I'm just letting you understand that when you are categorized, you have to know what you're categorizing. Now, because of this ambiguity, some students don't categorize according to the different classifications. They just discuss how many the paper, how many the theories, how many times the theory is represented. So look at this, for example. And Portia, your hand was up. So let me show you. Yeah, let me just show you from here. I'm just showing something to Portia first. Portia, so if you look at this particular, look at this one. The research frameworks applied in the literature. This is a paper that I wrote on the cloud computing. So I just mentioned the name of the theories and then at what level do we apply, and I discuss. However, in another paper, I don't think I've opened that paper. In some other papers, I counted them. Let me see if I do something. I counted. Okay, good. This paper like this. We counted it. So look at this paper. We counted it. So how many papers are using this framework? Trust model 1, the theory 1, RDF 2, GIF 2. All of them have got their meanings in the work already. So I just put them there and I counted it to show you the ones which are being used most. So if you look at it, no framework is used. So the area needs more theory. All the other theory 1. That means that the area itself is now developing. And it's not surprising the paper was called Preliminary Insights. Okay, Portia can come now. Portia, ask your question.
Please.
This one, okay. Yes, Portia can go on.
Please. I have a little challenge with regards to the theory and the conceptual framework. Please, could you please elucidate the conceptual framework and the theory for me again?
Okay, because I'm not teaching that right now, but there's a video on it called I taught that one yesterday. You can go and watch it. But let me quickly just solve one of your problems. Let me just show you. Look at this particular paper from marketing. Are you from what department are you from?
Public administration.
Oh, sorry, but I have a marketing example here. Look at this paper. The paper is called Using the Theory of Brand Behavior to Understand Brand Love. Okay. So the theory is a classic theory already. So they say I'm going to use the theory to understand brand love. So they explain the theory here, theory of brand behavior. But to be able to apply it in the work, the theory is in the abstract state. To be able to apply it to work, you have to look at it in how you're going to use it. So in the way you're going to use it, he now developed a conceptual framework based on it. So a research model or a conceptual framework where you say that attitude from the theory of brand behavior, subjective norm, goes to brand love. And then there's another part of theory of brand behavior called perceived behavioral control. He expands it and decomposes it into propensity to anthropomorphize, that's to treat the brand like a human being, and affordability of the brand, and it goes to the brand love. And if you have brand love, you can then look at brand forgiveness. You forgive the brand. So this is the intention and this is the actual behavior. So he built it upon the theory, but the theory is in an abstract state. So you have to apply it to what you're going to study. As soon as you bring it to where you're going to study, you leave the abstract world to the conceptual one. You are now suggesting that this is how to relate together. So you can now say it's called conceptual framework or conceptual model. Your conceptualization of how these factors come together to generate an outcome.
Okay.
That's what framework does. So the theory underpins a framework. But the theory is not the only one that underpins a framework. There are certain works that people do review of literature, review different papers, and then find out factors that influence an issue, and they develop a conceptual framework. So a conceptual framework can be developed either through a theory or through a reading of the literature by finding the factors that others have found to develop your own model, or a combination of the two. This paper line is a combination of the two because involvement is not part of the research, it's not part of the theory of brand behavior. He said that if your involvement is higher with the brand, you are likely to have more love to it, which makes sense. So you found involvement as a variable and added to involvement with product category. Additionally, the moderating role of involvement with the product category is investigated. Zakowski defines involvement as a different. Research suggests that higher consumer involvement leads to more favorable perception of the attribute differences, perception of greater product importance, and greater commitment to brand choice. So what am I trying to say? The love will be higher if involvement is there, but involvement is not part of the brand and the theory of brand behavior. The theory of brand behavior is a generic theory that explains behavioral behavior. So people use it in finance, people use it in healthcare, people use it in so many dimensions. It's just source as let me even explain it from let me bring it from the horse's own mouth. Look at it said what TBP developed by Agem is an extension of the theory of reason action and has been one of the most influential theories explaining and predicting what behavior. It didn't say predicting brand behavior. It just predicts behavior. So if today, if you want to study why certain behavior is seen in the public sector, you can use this one. Attitude to the public sector. Subjective norm. Subjective norm means the extent to which an individual is influenced by social pressure. If an individual perceives that significant others endorse or disapprove of a behavior, he's more likely to either show that behavior or not show. Attitude is your favorable or unfavorable evaluation of the behavior. Then subjective norms are things that can either limit you or constrain the behavior. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So when you talk about a theory exists in the abstract world. To be able to use it, you have to operationalize it. When you operationalize it, now you're not coming to the real world. And in the real world, you have to apply to something, and that one becomes conceptual, your suggestion. So by you testing it in your suggestion, you can either add to the theory, extend the theory, or even develop your own theory. Do you understand me, Portia?
Yes, Prof.
Good. But please let me tell you, some of your supervisors are confused. I'm just telling you, some of these lectures, they don't even know the differences. So they keep on, that's why I say read. If you read my book and if you watch the video I taught yesterday, which I'll be teaching you next, but you watch it, it will give you, I took my time to explain it very well. So if you go online right now and look at the platform, let me just show you. What am I, when you go here right now, YouTube, and you look at the class website page. So it's Richard Boateng Studios, as I told you some time ago. Okay, so let me open the pages up. Good. If you look at under the MBA 1, so we start by MBA 1. Good. The most recent video there is down here. Session 5. Session 3B is the descriptive one also. Session 5, I explain research framework and theory. And I take my time. I taught this at a PhD level, even though it was for MBAs. I taught them, explain them everything. So you can actually understand it. And I show examples from all the disciplines, healthcare, everything. I showed examples from all of them. How we use the theories and everything. So please spend some time and study these things. Okay. You see, the MBAs, I'm teaching them almost at the same time teaching, but they have extra time. So we meet about twice or thrice in a week and we do a lot. So that we have gone so far, we are now on, next week we are doing methodology. Okay, so let me just go back to what I was just trying to emphasize. Okay, so my advice to all
Prof,
of you.
Can I ask a quick question?
I'm coming, please. My advice to all of you is that in the minimum you can do is to know how to categorize by counting the number of papers. So you see some papers come in two were used in the paper. Sometimes two theories are used in one paper. So you can see it here. So out of the 285 papers, these are the papers that are being used and across different. But if you look at it very carefully, the papers with no theory is 235, 82%. That means that the area is theoretical. It needs more theory. So when you have a table like this, it justifies your PhD that you are using theory in your work. That's why I'm telling you the review is very, very good. It justifies the theory. And which theory should you use? You can either choose one of the dominant ones like RBV, or you can even pick one of the new areas. You see now, those who were the earlier papers were using the individual ones, but later on people are combining time and tool, time and hot fit, time and DOI. So you see, time keeps on being multiplied, added to tool and DOI. So you are combining them. So there may be a reason why they are combining. You may want to look into that. So all I'm just trying to tell you is that please do this breakdown. This breakdown helps you to know what you have and what you don't have. So that when you go and do your work, you can be able to understand it very well. Okay. So a good theory provides clear explanations of how and why a specific relation leads to specific events. A framework denotes structure, overview, outline a system or plan consisting of various descriptive categories. Frameworks do not provide explanation. They only describe empirical phenomena by fitting them to a set of categories. However, a model involves a deliberate simplification of the phenomenon. So sometimes people define models as theories with a more narrowly defined scope of explanation. So like that's why the person called his own conceptual model, just narrowed down to brand lab. So sometimes people use the word framework and they use the model, they don't know what they are using. If you saw my work, I call my own framework because I brought different categories together. But when the person was doing his own, he called it model, conceptual model, because it was a narrow explanation of the theory of plant behavior to fit brand lab. So that one he called it model. But I called my own framework because I was bringing different things together. So don't be mixing the words conceptual framework, conceptual model. Conceptual model is a narrow explanation of something. Conceptual framework is different categories coming together. But please, it doesn't mean that people do it rightly. Some people are confused. Even me in my previous one, sometimes because I'm doing co-author with people, we just, which name should we use? Just put the model there, just put the model there. No, actually, what you are doing is a framework, it's not a model. So when you simplify it into a narrow scope, we call it a model. But when you bring different categories into the simplification, to be able to show how they relate together, it is better, it is called a framework. Do we understand it? Okay, we'll do that more later. Okay, please, your question.
Yeah. Hello, Prof.
Yeah, I have to get running now. Yeah.
Okay, so, Prof, please, I wanted to ask that does it really matter whether you're doing a qualitative research or quantitative research, whether you need a conceptual framework or model? Because usually you'd hear people say that for qualitative research, you do not need a conceptual framework or yes. So can you please clarify this? And especially with your research on the mobile phones and then the traders. I don't know whether that was a qualitative research or quantitative research. And
okay, so that was a qualitative research. That was a qualitative research. It began with using transaction cost theory, and then then other things from economics, and I simplified them into that model you see there, that framework you see there. Okay, but please, you see, there are different words. Don't mix PhD with a published paper. Published paper has so many different types of audiences is trying to respond to, and reason why they are publishing the paper. Sometimes somebody is doing an exploratory work, so he reviews the area, picks certain concepts from the area, and goes to use it. Even though he has not used what is categorically called a theory, he's using what we call a concept, and the concept is framing the work. So there's a research framework. The word there is a research framework. The word there is not research theory. It's not research conceptual framework, research framework. Anything can frame a research. Even a research question can frame a research. So every work needs a frame. Whether you pick it from theory inspired, from literature inspired, from concept inspired, it's still a framework. Now, the level of theorization is where the confusion comes from. Are you using a theory, a model, or a concept? Now, there are concepts like information property. There's a concept like the ripple effect concept, where if you drop a stone into water, it creates ripples. In Bully ulcer study, Bully ulcer was found in a particular town which was not close to a water body, and they were wondering why. And they just realized that the thing was happening in another town, but it had, because of people's human movement and other kind of human engagement, the thing has transferred to another town. So you could see a ripple effect of an intervention or a healthcare pandemic at one place affecting people in another place. Look at where the thing happened at China. Today, somebody in Damango is afraid of what was the name? It's about COVID-19. Why? Because of ripple. It just continues and it continues and it has effect. But you see, interesting thing is that at the closer point of where the ripple has, you can see that it's stronger. As it goes on, it becomes weaker, but it still can have effect. So, but somebody can use that ripple effect to explain the social phenomenon of intervention coming to community and it having impact on another community. But he may not call it a theory, but still framing the research. So now let me come to a PhD. Every PhD is contributing to what? To philosophy. Your contribution to philosophy has to be based on an issue And then it could also be based on, most importantly, a theory, because the theory underpins the issue. So somebody asks, what is your contribution of your PhD? And they can't see any theorization. The PhD is weak. What then differentiates your PhD from a master's work? Now, somebody may not use a theory because he could be doing grounded theory. He may be building a theory. So he picks data and build a theory from the data. So grounded theory approach. That could be his PhD, or what we call theory elaboration approach. There's a paper that I think I have to let you guys read later. Theory elaboration approach. They don't start with any theory. They actually pick the theory from but the theory elaboration approach is a different approach from the grounded theory approach, but it's similar to it. So sometimes somebody builds a theory from the literature, from the data he has built. But that one, he states in the beginning, he's using grounded theory approach for his work, grounded theory. The study is grounded in the data, and his theories are developed from the data. Apart from that one, it will be very difficult for you to tell me do the PhD without a theory. But if you're writing a paper, you're doing exploratory work, you can then do without a theory. But even there, it tells you where was it published. Very high-ranking journals always want you to contribute to theory, challenge our thinking, challenge the current understandings that are there, contribute to knowledge, and let's challenge the area. So somebody can contribute to theory by challenging it from the methodology, or challenging it from the context, or challenging it from the issue, or even questioning the theory itself. So you can't say that there's any paper that doesn't have a framework. Every paper has a framing for the work. It can be even the research question is frames. How would you ask questions if you don't have a frame? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? After the research framework, everybody has it. But whether the research framework is a theory-based research framework, or it's literature-based research framework, or just a question or a concept, that's another issue. I hope you understand me. Every research has a frame. Even somebody frames his research around his objective. So the frame that you have a frame that tells you how far you go. So you have a frame. But whether the frame is inspired by theory, inspired by literature, inspired by both theory and literature, inspired by concepts and theory, or inspired by concepts and literature, all those things depends on the person who is doing the work. Are we okay?
Yes, Prof. Yes, Prof.
Even let me tell you, even the ongoing investigation in Ejua has a frame. They give them a mandate, what you should do, what you should look out for. So there's a frame that is guiding the question. Everything has a frame. Any investigative process has a frame. It may be a weak frame, but there's a frame. But what then, whether it's inspired by theory, if it's like, let me just say, if Ejura is inspired by theory, you may want to look at a theory of social unrest, and a theory of maybe there's in military, there's a theory of shooting. I don't know. I'm just saying that. So you may use those two to go and do an analysis. But if they're not using the two and they're just going with the frame that okay, this committee has been mandated to do this and that, the questions they are giving them, the mandate they are giving to them is the frame that's giving them. So everybody has a frame that guides him in any investigative endeavor. The thing is that is the frame built on theory or something? That's a different question to ask. So look at this one like this: financial needs. Papers on the financial needs use information poverty, a concept. Others also build their own framework, a framework to assess mobile payment. He added consumer choice and demand to network externality, switching costs. He put all of this together to develop his own framework. But somebody used a model, additive transformative end payments model, to assess market needs. This one is just incremental, you call it incremental transformation end payments model. Somebody told, that's what I was showing you there, that incremental effect, transformational effects, that's it. So somebody uses, and then somebody also used the 4 stages of market development, which is coming from economics, a model. End payment business marketing models, bank versus operator centric, a model. But this model is coming from practice. It's not coming from literature. Theory of asymmetric information is a theory. So person will categorize. But I'm not saying you should use this approach, but it's good to always know what the people are using in their work. Then go to methodological issue, then go to geographic distribution. Methodological issue, you can look at quantitative, qualitative, and then mixed methods, and then categorize them in terms of, somebody categorize this one, we categorize by the theories. Most of the social theories are either mixed methods or qualitative or descriptive, but the technical, socio-technical ones are more quantitative. So here I can see that there are more papers who don't use data. The one that use data is dominated by quali. Quali is more. If you look at here, quali is more. but we have less on quanti and then less on mixed method. So it tells you where the future research should look into. Now, the papers that are bold also have a meaning. That the person is using primary data. Sometimes you can use your own legend, and then sometimes some people italize. Italize may have a different meaning. Okay, so if you look at it here, survey 62%, case study 44%, content analysis. This is about the research method that was used. Simulation 4%, attribute analysis 1, mixed methods 10, no other method, no nothing mentioned 57, 181. Okay. The geographic distribution, that one is easy for you to do. You can do it according to different countries. And lastly, people also try to categorize by the issue they are studying and then the level of analysis, macro, meso, and micro. Then they categorize it and they show you mapping of papers on Africa. So he's narrowing down the papers on Africa. So you said maybe there are only 10 papers, 11 papers in Africa. So let me show you how the 11 papers in Africa are shared. So now I can see that most of the papers in Africa, and this is for e-government, most of the papers in Africa are at the micro level, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see that. And then look at the bold is for those which have got primary sources, that's empirical papers. So all the papers at the micro level are empirical. But the papers at the meso level, at the macro level are not empirical. They are just secondary data, or in fact, those which are not italized are just normal data, no anecdotal information. So you can create your own tables and use your own what I may say, your own kind of legend to explain it. Now this one is a snapshot. Like he takes the papers in Africa, the e-governance papers in Africa 11, and then tells you what is happening in Africa, so that you can be able to point out where the gaps are. Because sometimes if you look at the paper in Africa, you can only just say that, oh, Africa has 11, and Africa is even doing better than Middle East, which is 3, and Oceania, which is 9. So that means that there's future studies you should look at Oceania and East. Not no. Go into Africa and look at it very well. You may even realize that West Africa is not even captured in the Africa here. So don't just look at numbers. Numbers doesn't tell you much unless you delve in and look at what's happening in the numbers. I don't think you see any Ghanaian name here. So it tells you that there's no Ghanaian paper. Or maybe Owusu, yeah, there's one paper here, Awori and Owusu. Those are only papers. I'm just using the names to show that maybe it's papers from Ghana or not. Okay. So then future research, what should future research do? Then the references will come. Okay, so let me just show you something from a paper that I think you can learn from. This paper that is coming is yet to be published. It will be published next month, so maybe next month you can get it. One interesting thing the person did is that he started looking at. He chooses the area and tells you what are the future direction or questions that should be asked. So thematic area and then the question, thematic area and the question. Then which paper did he get the ideas from? So these are some of the things that you can think about doing if you are doing your work. Some people also ask questions. They ask questions. I've seen people that ask questions. Some of my people they ask a question. Citizen moment. How will citizens adopt this? People that ask questions, sometimes the short paper we ask questions. So for example, look at this one. This conference paper like this. When we're discussing the dominant issues, so research gaps. So we discuss this one, then we say what questions we propose that following questions should be explored in the future. Then we propose that the following questions should be explored in the future. We discuss them. So that's what we do. They pose questions. So he can then build his PhD based on the questions that are here. Build his PhD based on the questions that are here.